Hey guys, today we are going to go over integers, opposites, and absolute value. Just a couple of things, a couple of reminders. When it comes to absolute value, remember, absolute value is always positive. And since distance deals with absolute value, that means distance is always going to be positive. Integers are numbers that are positive or negative. So those are just a couple of things to remind you. Let's go through a couple of highlights before we get into some practice problems today. All right, what are integers? Just to remind yourself, remember, they're positive numbers, negative numbers. 0 is an integer, but remember, it is neither positive nor negative. Okay, improper fractions that reduce to a whole number are integers. So, for example, if you're looking at that and we have 6/3 and we reduce 6/3, what would 6/3 equal? 2. So that would be an integer. However, if you had a fraction that was 7/3 and we reduce that to a mixed number, what would that be? 2 1/3. That is not an integer. So it's only an integer whenever it gets to a whole number, okay? Now, all positive and negative whole numbers can be graphed on the number line like we've used before. Remember, if we have a number line this way, it's what kind of number line? Horizontal. And if we have one going up and down, what kind of number line is that? It is vertical. All right. Remember, integers are not fractions that come out to be mixed numbers. They're not decimals or improper fractions that can't be changed into a mixed number again. All right. Keep that in mind. Don't get confused about the fractions and the improper fractions. If it comes out to be a whole number, integer. If it doesn't, not integer. All right, let's go over some real life examples of positive integers. All right, remember, in a lot of word problems that we have, it's going to give us words that signify a positive number or a negative number, and we're going to need to know the difference between those words. So if we're talking about money and bank accounts, if we have the money in our bank accounts, that is a positive number. Scores in sports, so if your favorite team just scored a touchdown, those are positive numbers. Temperatures above 0, remember, a thermometer looks like a vertical number line, and those numbers above 0 are positive. Now, what if you had those numbers below 0? What would those be? Negative numbers. All right, we have increase in sales. That means you're selling more. Say one day you sold 5 cookies, and then the next day you sold 10 cookies. You have a positive 5 in those sales. Any amount that is increasing. Remember those keywords. Yesterday we used the word increasing, and that meant that the number was getting larger. So that is a positive number. Remember, when we're talking about positive numbers, they can still be graphed on that number line, and they're numbers that are to the right. All right, let's talk about real life examples of negative numbers. Okay, when we're talking about negative numbers on a horizontal number line, remember those numbers are to the left. And if we're talking about numbers on a vertical number line, the negative ones are below 0. That keyword below will let you know that it is a negative number. Okay, so taking money out of your bank account, if you went to the store to spend your money, that is now a negative integer. You're taking it away. Money owed on credit cards. So if you owe money to someone, that is a negative number. Paying for an item, writing checks. A lot of you may not remember or know what a check is. A check is just a piece of paper that you would write to give money to someone else. Below par in golf. Okay, when we talk about golf, remember golf, you're trying to get the smallest score, and that's how you win. So if it's below par, that is a negative number. It has that keyword below. Losing yards in football, say your favorite team got sacked, their quarterback got sacked for a loss of yards, that is negative yards. Temperatures below 0. Melting snow, decreases in sales. That keyword decrease lets you know that it's going down, and any amount that is decreasing. So we have those keywords below, decreasing, getting smaller. Those would let us know that they are negative integers. Now let's look at some examples of integers and not integers. If we look over here on the green side, these are numbers, are whole numbers. Okay, there's no parts to them. If we look over at the not integers, we have some decimals and we have some fractions that cannot be reduced to a whole number. So that makes those not integers. Now, a couple examples of these integers in the real world. What is the temperature? So if we look at this thermometer and we read the thermometer over to the left of it, it says it's 120 degrees. Now that is an integer because it is a whole number. Now let's look at this one. The lady snorkeling is 2 feet under the water. If we're saying under, what kind of number are we going to have? It's going to be negative. All right, remember when we're talking about water and sea level represents 0. So if we're going under the sea, we are going to those negative numbers. All right, Sam deposited $100 into his bank account. And if we're talking about the word deposit, that means you take that money and you're going to the bank to put it in your account. So since you're depositing it, it is your money to keep. So is that going to be a positive or a negative number? It is going to be a positive number because you now have $100 in your account that you get to keep. All right, the football team gained 5 yards, then lost 10 yards, and finally gained 2 more. Okay, so if we're looking at this, it's given us a couple of them. So we're going to have to create an equation of this real world experience to figure out what would be left over. So we can use a number line when we're doing that. So first of all, the team gained 5 yards. So if we're at this 0 here and say we gained 5 yards. Okay, but then we lost 10 yards. So we would count going back 10 yards. So if I go back 10 spaces, that starting at that 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that would put us at the -5, but then it says we gain 2 more. So that means we're going which way on the number line after that? We're going to go to the right because that is a +2. So we would jump 2, and where do we end on that number line? A -3. Okay, so whenever you're given examples where you're going back and forth, use a number line to go to jump those spaces to figure out where you would land. All right, let's look at a couple of practice problems. Okay, Zane took $30 from his bank account at the ATM machine. Write and graph each integer. So if we're taking money away, that is now what kind of number? It would be a -30. So we would show that on the number line by dragging that dot and putting it over the -30. Let's look at the next one. The scuba diver is 75 feet below the surface of the ocean. So if you're going below, what kind of number is that? It is a negative number. So how would I show the negative version of 75 feet? -75, very good. And remember, our negative numbers are which way on the number line from 0? They are to the left. Now I'm looking at this number line and I see that we skip counted by tens and we have a -75. So where am I going to place my dot on this number line? We would place it in between the -70 and the -80. Good job. All right, we're going to do a few more together and then you are going to do the rest on your own to get a little bit of practice. So let's look at number 4. The temperature dropped 20 degrees overnight. So if you're dropping, it's what kind of number? It is negative. Very good. Okay, what did we skip count by on this number line? By 2s. Remember, when you label a number line, you've got to skip count so that each tick mark is worth the same amount. All right, let's look at this last one together. The golfer scored 2 below par. Now we're talking about golf here, but it does have that keyword below. So since it is below, what kind of number would that be? A -2. Very good. What did we skip count by on this number line? We just counted by once. Okay, so we'll drag that dot and put it on our -2. Okay, so there are about 10 more questions where I want you to practice using your positive and negative words to figure out what kind of number it is. If you get an equation one where it's asking where you go forward some and then you go backwards, use your number line to do that so that you can see where you would land on that number line.